today to talk specifically about creativity. And the Web Summit have invited these gentlemen and myself along because not so much with just what they're accomplishing, which is very, very exceptional, but also for the way that they're accomplishing it. And these are some of the key take-homes I think that we can all take away with us. So I think it'd be good just for a quick introduction from each of you. And we were talking backstage, perhaps just one sentence about a campaign or something creative that you've done that has been exceptional that you would like to shout about.
So I think you might know me. I'm Ben. So I'm the CTO at AKQA. And so what is exceptional in AKQA? I think just recently the House of Mamba is a product and an experience that we provided for kids basketballers. And we basically digitized the basketball court from the ground. And we tracked all the basketball players at all the times and sent the drills down to the floor itself. And then Kobe Bryant and other people and other phenomenal stars were able to see the skill and to coach those kids in such an immersive experience. It really was a piece of beautiful creativity.
So I'm Chip Paucek. I'm co-founder and CEO of a company called 2U. We partner with top colleges in the United States to build what we think are the world's best online degree programs. And the approach is very different. So it's live, so the interface looks a little bit like the beginning of the US show, The Brady Bunch. So in trying to describe how you could have online education that's very different than the way it had been done in the past, we came up with this campaign called No Back Row. You all know the back row way back there, the seats closest to the exits. What if you could eliminate that back row and bring every student forward? So this No Back Row became a really strong metaphor for the company as we grew.
I'm Cillian Kieran. I'm the co-founder and CEO of CKSK. I'm based in New York. I would say the example of work that I would think I'm probably proudest of that we've done at the moment is a piece of consulting work we're doing with a client to transform the way their senior executive think about technology and creativity. So we've been working with them for the last number of months to redefine how they think in an agile fashion about technology in their business.
Brilliant. And my name is Ross Kingsland. You have to forgive my cold. I'm one of the contributors to Fast Company magazine, and I also am the founder of Inception Growth. One of the companies that we work with is, amongst many, is Uber, but one of the cool ones that we did recently was with Protein World, which was the Beachbody Ready advert. And one of the things that we applied to it was not just a case of putting the adverts up there, it was actually generating the media storm and frenzy that was around it. And it was something that was a bit exciting, a bit controversial, and just spread like crazy. So, one of the things we were talking about backstage, and I think would be quite interesting, we talked offline as well, was about this kind of creative process. And obviously we can't cover the whole thing here today, because it's quite a massive, expansive topic. But I was just wondering, Chip, obviously, your company is very much is recognized as one of the leading innovators. I was just wondering about some of the culture that you have within your company to develop that.
So we're based in Washington, D.C., but we have offices all over the world. We have about 1,000 employees. We are behind the scenes, so you've probably never heard of the company, but we IPO'd last year. We're going through really heavy growth in terms of employee growth, and I really believe that creativity is not just for the marketing experts that work with our universities or the people producing courses for our universities. It's really for all employees. So we try to instill that in the hiring process. I really believe that creativity and innovation are directly linked. And it's really hard. It's, on one level, easy to find the right skill set. It's hard to train the spirit. And so we really look for people that can brighten the room in every job that we have at the company. And I think that, for me, is much more what about creativity will drive 2U going forward, rather than just thinking about it as an actual creative process. So we have a culture code, and there's sort of 8 basic tenets of the culture. One of them is don't let the skeptic win. One of them is be bold and fearless. That means I started the company 8 years ago, but I definitively do not want you doing things the way I did them 8 years ago. I want you doing them in a better way. So constantly innovating. And we talk about this backstage, similar thing for your company.
Absolutely, and it's a point that Ben raised in his talk and Chip and I spoke about backstage, is that For us, actually, we think about it slightly differently. The words, innovation worries me as a word, I suppose, because it means many things to many people, and it kind of looks like the bold, shiny object in the room. And for us, what we're trying to understand is, how do you remain constantly agile? So persistent agility, the ability to continue dreaming and remain hungry, fearless and bold and brave and all of those things. So what we spend our time doing with our clients is trying to understand how you breed behavior that isn't inert. So you don't do the same things again, you persistently do the new. Because if you take it this way, right, if we all decide to be mobile experts or social media experts, which is what most brands seek to do, you learn about one thing at one point in time right now, and you're no longer a domain expert in 5 years' time. We don't know what the future will hold, what the innovation might be, or the agility that we'll need to have, but we want to remain consistently agile. That's how we think about it, I guess.
I think creativity is about... one of the questions I ask in an interview process is simply, what is your passion? And it's not about work, it's about what is your passion. And you need to see the fire come out from within that person, and then ask a kind of critical question against that passion, and then see them come alight even more. Because then you kind of see the type of person they are. Are they a tenacious dreamer? Are they really that kind of person who's going to make that difference? Who's going to make those beautiful little touches which make the difference in a good app versus a beautiful app, for example. So I think the word passion is really key. And I also think being new all the time, kind of always naive to the problem. You know, it's very hard that lots of companies are taking creativity in-house. And I would say this because I'm an agency, you mustn't take it in-house. But the truth is that when you see your own domain problem all the time, it's the same brand, you never really come fresh. And that freshness is proven to, more often than not, be the thing which breaks through and comes up with a phenomenal idea. You know, it's always about Andre Geim, the person who found graphene, for example, one of the biggest things that we'll ever see in our life anyway. And he found it through levitating frogs and playing with graphite and sellotape, because he didn't know what the problem or the answer was. He just played towards it.
And you made that point beautifully in your talk, actually. I think you probably all saw the statistic that Ben had in relation to creativity as a child, or how we dream as children, right? We're willing to do that. And then that's educated out of us, effectively. By the time we get to 20, we don't necessarily believe we can achieve the things that we could when we were 12 or 11 or 10, right? And I'm actually curious, given your role in education, how you view that. Like, where does education sit in the field of creativity for you at the moment?
Well, we work with universities, so what we're trying to do is we stand behind a great university like Yale University, Georgetown University, Berkeley University in the United States, and power a degree experience. So it's actually quite complicated to marry the culture of effectively a tech startup with an institution that was founded in 1701. Yeah. So combining the two together to create a brand new version of a degree. Why should the degree not fit around you? So the whole idea, I believe in 10 years when we go out 10 years from now, even 20 years from now, we'll look back at this era and wonder why anyone quit their job to attend graduate school. Why should you have to pick up your life, quit your job, and move to attend graduate school? Now, with all that said, it's actually very difficult to pull off, and it's very difficult to sort of marry those cultures. So creativity is required not just from the people we bring to the table, but from great university leaders.
Totally agree.
It's actually, today, if you look at our university partners, I really believe that they are building the future of U.S. higher education. So 2U is really much more the story of institutional will than it is the story of technology. Technology is critical. And one other comment, I connecting the two of you, I do think that what you said about the person is so critical. We have a catchphrase that came actually from me, and I don't take credit for everything at 2U. The people are incredible, but it's called every day's a holiday, every meal's a feast. And if you can actually process that in your hiring and find people that actually can think that way, where they get up every day and they think that every day today is a holiday and every meal is a feast, it's really powerful from a cultural standpoint in terms of...
That kind of comes to my point I said earlier on about uncertainty. When you have uncertainty, you're always fearful, and then you're fearful within, with judgment or, the word of failure, which I hate the word purely because it's overused. But the truth is that our organisations don't provide that kind of environment to truly play, to truly be free, to truly experiment, to truly just be, like I mentioned before, a child. There's a child in the front here, Alexander, who's got a phenomenal app for the disabled. If you ever see him walking around, he's just standing down here. 10 years old. 10 years old, the future literally just there. And his mind isn't twisted or just burnt. He just had a phenomenal idea, and he's got a great dad and family around him to take that through. Because he's not fearful of being judged. And yet our organisations need to change, and the universities, the examination process needs to fundamentally change. Otherwise, we're going to go very wrong. Like I mentioned, in the UK, this morning they're talking about examining 7-year-olds much harder. It's like, my son's 8, or my daughter's about to... My daughter can hardly write. Got to be examined. It's just wrong.
Yeah, and it's a critical thing as well, because when we're talking about creativity, it's not just about a marketing campaign or something like that. It's how you apply creativity across the entire innovation process. And that's where a lot of the disruptors come from.
Yeah, absolutely. And you make a point that we were talking about backstage, which is when we think about creativity, we often think of art direction and copywriting, right? The traditional marketing tropes. And actually, creativity, to Chip's point and to Ben's, is just a way of thinking about problem solving, one could argue, right? And actually what we need to look for, it was interesting to hear Chip say that he looks to hire the type of people that are willing to solve in a new way. Actually, the challenge we face with our clients is how do we help senior executives of legacy businesses, so companies that are 50, 60, 100 years old, reinvent the organization that's already there. You can't fire everybody and start again. So how do you engender agility? How do you engender a wish to innovate in that way? And you're right, it's not marketing, right? This is solving problems in every business unit, right, throughout the industry. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's having the balls to change something, really, as well. That's creativity. If you take blockchain, for example, or being talked about at the moment, how it's going to fundamentally change the financial world that we live within. Blockchain. And what's even funny about that is that all the finance people don't even understand what blockchain is. So it's just they've thought so far and so differently and so right that they've just gone ahead and done it. And it could fundamentally change everything we know in finance.
Yeah, I totally agree. I constantly think the technology, or digital technology, because of course technology is it's a myriad of types, right? The industrial age and everything else. To me, technology is just a paintbrush, right? It's a tool that you can use for creativity. And we interpret Uber, blockchain, whatever innovation you want to call it, as a tech startup. 40, 50 years ago, those guys probably would have been art directors and copywriters, because that would have been the best means to commercialize their creative ability, right? Their problem-solving capability. Now they happen to be able to use technology to do it. So any business should be able to harness it. It's how do you restructure yourself so that you can think in that way or behave in that way.
Yeah.
I think what would be quite interesting is also talking about how you identify who are creative people who are going to be within your organization. So obviously as an agency, I was wondering what the difference was between hiring agency creatives and taking them on in-house, if there is a difference.
Well, we have in our hiring process, forgive me, I forget what's the child's name?
Alexander.
Can you give me earmuffs for a sec, cover your So at 2U, we have a no asshole policy, forgive me. So in the hiring process, so it's a formal policy around trying to hire people that can be candid, honest, open, and creative. And I think that's actually a very hard thing to do. I think that candid nature really drives the culture to allow the creativity, and I think from the standpoint of fear of failure, there's no doubt that if people are afraid to try, you really can't drive the kind of innovation or creativity that you want. So, this is my third venture-backed startup, and it's the only one that worked. And I'm not shy to talk about it. I mean, my first two were a labor of love. I did one for 10 years. I produced a television show in the United States that taught middle school, high school, college courses by comedians. So it was interesting. The show did very well, but the business never did. And so I sort of lived it, but inside the company, finding the people, whether they're in brand marketing, or they're in content production, or they're in technology, or they're even in support, where they're talking to people on the phone, finding the people that will shine is really, I think, the entire story of the success of this particular company. So as CEO, it's what I spend a lot of my personal time on.
I think the word candid is a really good one. Because again, if you go back to my passion, which is the way the children think, my daughter the other day asked me a question. She said, "Daddy, why have you got such a big nose?" I was like, "Thanks, Freya," because she just saw that I've got a big nose. And she's right, I have got a big nose, but it's that pure openness and honesty which really drives a company forward in this kind of creative process. And to come back to the question around who's creative and who's not, You know, everyone in this room is creative in some way. Absolutely everyone. We just have different types of education and different types of passion. And when you find your passion, it's amazing how creative you will become and how much you strive.
Absolutely. And to answer the question very personally for our business, I can say that we fundamentally believe that a great idea can come from anywhere. So everybody's allowed to contribute. That can piss off very traditional creatives, but it's what we believe. Everybody has the ability to solve a problem. That for us is creativity. It's not to art direct or to design things.
Because one of the areas that I've dedicated part of my life to is actually the psychology of inspiration. And there's actually a body of research around it. One of the things that they look at, which then explodes onto this kind of creativity aspect, is essentially having many different resources that you can pick from to develop some kind of creative muscle. And in a corporate, it can be a lot harder to implement this, naturally, because it can be seen as a waste of money. I was just wondering about how you would encourage people within your own organizations or with those you speak with, on how they would start to foster a creative process.
If I may, the point that you made about corporate seeing it as a waste of money, I think that's definitely a historic truism. I think that's changing very rapidly. I think increasingly as we said, legacy industries are being squeezed by outlier competitors like the Airbnbs of this world, the Ubers of this world. And if you're FedEx, you're suddenly not thinking UPS and TNT are my big competitor, but Uber probably is in the next decade. So how do I challenge that? So they have to reinvent the way they do business. And I think the result of that is they're now starting to take creative process, or at least problem solving, as a very serious component of their business. And certainly we spend a lot of our time with our clients trying to help them put in place those systems for thinking in that way. Is there a one-size-fits-all answer? I doubt it. But all I would say is that I would caution that there's a resistance to it. I think increasingly big business needs to do it to survive. They've got no choice. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you really have to drink your own Kool-Aid. So at our company, really, we do an annual company meeting every year that's every employee from all over the world. It's expensive to do, but we think it's critical to the culture. And part of the company meeting is we break up into small groups of 10. So you think about 1,000 employees down to small groups of 10 to solve one of 3 particular problems we've identified as a company. So really trying to bring people across from all different departments, whether even you're in legal or accounting and you're sitting those folks with people from the content production side, which you might argue content production in our world or brand marketing, those might be the 2 sort of most obvious creative jobs where you've got somebody actually building courses for a university like Yale. And trying to foster that creativity across the company, regardless of job spec, I think is pretty important.
You know, I think there's a bit of a misnomer around a general creative process, because everyone's creative in different ways, at different times, in different environments. So I'm pretty good, sounds really bad, I'm better when I'm on my own, thinking on my own, than I am in a bigger group. Other people bounce off ideas off each other in brainstorms, traditional brainstorms. And then ideas can be, so it's very different, you know, and yet a lot of organizations try to define a single process rather than the freedom to create, which is really important. I think the structure and the gateways that you go through are just as important as well. So from a technology point of view, from a governance, really boring point of view, we have things called red team reviews, which are really structured, architectural, engineering focused. Is your product going to be good? Is it going to be the right design? Is it going to do those things? But to spread that out wider, and we widen it out to product reviews, and then you get the different critique and questions, not critique in terms of, but encouragement and asking obvious questions to better the product, to ask sensible questions, to get conversation going. Again, allows people to be in an environment where they kind of feel parented through the process and nurtured through the process, and they can nurture their idea, not crush it and scrutinize it, but nurture their idea with betterment, with other people adding value into it as they go. Brilliant.
Well, I think we're actually pretty much out of time. I know that we could all talk for a lot longer about the subject and probably come up with some incredible ideas. I'd just like to get everyone to thank very much Ben, Chip, and Cillian, if you just welcome me and give them a hand of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.